My next guest is a certified trauma-informed sacred sexuality and relationship coach. Combining her coaching skills, trauma-informed education, knowledge of movement, breathwork, and anatomy, she guides women, men, and couples back to their orgasmic pleasure, truth, and power so that they have deeply fulfilling intimacy and healthy, exciting relationships in alignment with their souls. A big welcome to Marie Magdalena Wolf.
And not only through love and opening my heart, but through like the pleasure of that connection and those orgasms and beyond orgasms, because you can have different types of orgasm, just like a feeling of fulfillment. And I think it's a valid quest that people can have. So you're right. It's like they want more through sexuality. And that's just something more, you know?
Yeah. How do you guide them there? Like when somebody comes and says, I don't know what it is, but I want more.
Yeah. So when I work one-on-one, it's very unique to people, right? Everybody has a unique story. Everybody has unique desires, even in relationship. So the way I guide them first is to own their desires and to be witnessed in the fact like it's okay to want more. It's okay to be even in a relationship with someone you love and it's pretty smooth, and yet there is a yearning for more. So the first step is validating the desire. The second step is saying, well, what is blocking you from having it? Is it around communications? Is it your relationship to your body? Is it because you have unhealed sexual trauma and it manifests in ways that you haven't yet understood, right? And then we try to, we look under the veil of consciousness. I help them connect to their body and find, well, what's in the way and how can I cultivate safety to connect myself to my desires, so to speak, if that makes sense, right? So that's like the general approach, I would say.
Beautiful. And because you said sexual trauma, like for me, I didn't know for such a long time that I had a sexual trauma. And I was wondering, like, can you, for the audience, maybe explain a couple of different sexual traumas? So maybe for some people, it reveals something that.
Yeah, absolutely. I had sexual trauma and I didn't know I had it. And there are different levels and forms of trauma and intensity personally, which I'm always okay talking about it because first of all, I have done a lot of work around it. So talking about my trauma is not triggering. And I know it helps other people feel okay talking about their own, first with themselves, and then maybe engaging a process of healing, and then with their loved ones. And I was raped when I was 19, and it's so funny how the brain works because I was in complete denial of that experience for almost 2 decades, like 20 years. It's not like I didn't know it happened. I knew it happened, but I never understood the consequences, the PTSD I had at times, the fact that I was limited in my sexual expression and freedom, the fact that I would also choose dysfunctional relationships often, which was not just related to that trauma, like other aspects influenced that, you know? So when we think of sexual trauma, there's the obvious: incest, abuse, rape, groping, right? Even being bullied for the way your body looks can be thought as a form of sexual trauma. And that alone is, when we hear these words, we're like, well, this is big, right? And you would be shocked to realize how common it still is in our society and in many cultures for people to live with that, right? And yet still maybe not even realize the impact it has to this day on their relationship, on their sexuality, on the choice they make in relationship and in sexuality, right? And so those are the obvious. And then there are less obvious forms of sexual trauma. Like if you've been shamed heavily when you were a kid, let's say one of your parents found you masturbating and you were just innocent and just discovering your body, and you get heavily punished or grounded, or shamed, right? That's one form. You also have being exposed to heavily sexual content at a young age. Let's say you have an older brother who showed you some porn, or an older cousin, right? These things can be also sexualizing you as an age where you're too young to understand it.
Yeah.
And another form that is less, I think, understood as sexual trauma is religious sexual trauma, which is no matter the religion, I think we can have a spiritual connection and use one religion of our choice as a pathway to it, and yet still release the heavy guilt that is often that is infused in the religious teaching. So for people, I have a lot of people. I had, Catholic clients, or who were formerly Catholic or Muslim, tell me how heavy it was to grow up in an environment where anything, even talking, asking questions about sexuality was forbidden or judged or regarded as sinful. This idea of like, oh, I'm going to hell. Like all of those things, even if you don't believe it's true, if you grew up in that environment, it like has marinated in your subconscious mind. So those are the like examples of sexual trauma people can carry in their life. And I'm going to add another category, which is when your family members have or have had sexual trauma, and your ancestors, so your grandma, your aunts, your mother, your dad, because men also, can suffer from it. And even though you may not have repeated the patterns, although that's very frequent, you can still carry the fear and the pain because you absorbed it subconsciously from them in the way they talked, in the way they behaved, etc. So that's a long answer to your question, but I wanted to give to give people a broader understanding maybe of what sexual trauma actually is,
No, great. Thank you so much. It totally makes sense, especially also concerning children, because children learn by example. So how we act, how we talk, how we carry ourselves, it mirrors to them what it means to be an adult. And so that's what they incorporate, and they incorporate our traumas, our baggage that we carry. So thank you for opening my eyes with that, because that makes it so much more important that we get our shit together